Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where yesterday we got an unusual amount of movie news from social media, directly from the sources. And the first story was really a surprise, and that sprung out of a Twitter conversation between none other than Jordan Vogt-Roberts, the director of Kong Skull Island, and Mark Millar, comic book writer extraordinaire, who, although these days I think mostly just writes movie pitches. I'm like, keep going with the story. And he's like, nope, if nobody wants to make it into a movie, I don't want to continue writing it. And I'm like, aw. All right, so anyway, one of the first comic books that Mark Millar ever wrote, which made him famous, is Superman Red Sun, where he imagined it was an Elseworld story. I love Elseworld stories, as I've told you before, but they are no longer in favor with current DC Comics management, so they stopped making them. It's very sad. And they produced amazing things like this. So anyway, Mark Millar imagined an alternate timeline where the rocket from Krypton didn't land in the heartland of America, but in Russia, and what Superman's life would be like in that situation. Very interesting indeed. Fabulous high concept idea. High concept filmmaking is the best filmmaking. Basically what it means is that it's a really easy sell. You know, you can sum it up really fast and the audience is like, okay, got it. And so here you'd be like, what if Superman landed in Russia and was raised by Russia? How would that change him? How would Russia use him? And how would that tip the balance of power in the world, right? And you're like, all right, let's go to the races. So the reason this came up between these two gentlemen is that Mark Millar said, oh, hey, you know what? Two directors I know have been, Warner Brothers has pitched them Superman Red Sun and said, you want to make this movie for us? And Jordan Vogt-Roberts, the whole conversation started because of discussion about Jordan Vogt-Roberts' beard, etc., and how it was like a Batman beard at one point. But anyway, if you're wondering how this came to be. But Jordan Vogt-Roberts was like, what? I pitched Warner Brothers Superman Red Sun, as in I wanted to make it a couple of months ago, so he was kind of annoyed, and well, he was very gracious about it, especially because, you know, of course, Kong Skull Island was a movie he made for Warner Brothers, so he's already got an in there. But apparently not enough of an in that they would want him to do Superman Red Sun. But anyway, he's like, I pitched that to them, and they said no. But it's interesting that Warner Brothers was like, no to you, but no, yes for us, which is interesting. That just shows you it's always tough and dangerous to pitch because they could, especially when you don't own the property. Because Jordan Vogt-Roberts didn't come up with Superman Red Sun. He just said, I'd like to make it for you. And Warner Brothers sat there and the executives listened and they were like, thanks, Jordan. Well, we're going to say no, but it was nice to see you again. And then when he left the room, they were like, let's do this, guys, but without Jordan. So it sucks for him. Hollywood's a tough business, as we discussed yesterday with the Han Solo drama. But anyway, maybe they're like Logan and someone else, you know, there was a novelist who was joining in on this conversation, and they said, oh, like Logan, you know, it's kind of like a one standalone movie if you did Superman Red Sun. So maybe Warner Brothers executives saw how well Logan did, which also, you know, it said maybe it was an alternate timeline. I don't know. The X-Men chronology is ridiculous. But anyway, maybe they were like, well, maybe for Man of Steel 2, we should do a Superman Red Sun story. Wouldn't that be interesting? But I don't really know if Henry Cavill has the acting chops to pull off Superman Red Sun. I think he would, you know, seem very much like a pawn in other people's chess games, which sometimes is how Superman is portrayed, especially if Frank Miller's writing him, right? Hilarious. But I would like to see a little bit more of an internal struggle going on with Superman in such a situation. And also Henry Cavill, as I've said before, I think his strength is in comedy, based at least on his Instagram posts. He seems like a really fun, good-natured guy, which may be why he has struggled as Superman. But interestingly, Jordan Vogt-Roberts said in this Twitter conversation that he didn't even pitch for Cavill, and he wasn't convinced that you needed Henry Cavill or even Ben Affleck, because, you know, Batman factors into Superman Red Sun, for that storyline, which I thought was interesting. I don't really know if you could do a different actor. I don't know if the public is ready for Elseworld stories. Jordan Vogt-Roberts feels that they are. But I think that it's too much to ask of the mainstream moviegoer that you have two different Supermans at the same time. You're like, oh, well, this... Also, if it's a different actor, then I think it seems too much like a different story. It should be if, you know, Henry Cavill was in a different timeline. You know, just like Back to the Future, right? Like all those fun different timelines. If we change the timeline, what happens? You know, you get Biff World, or you get Superman in Russia. And I thought... Also, I think maybe the reason I didn't want Jordan Vogt-Roberts is because I think that Kong ended up being a little weak in the story department. I had similar problems with, how Matt Reeves handled story for War for the Planet of the Apes. Both are very strong visual directors. And I don't know how Warner Brothers, they hired Matt Reeves for the Batman already, and I think his visuals are excellent. But Warner Brothers really needs to lock down their story problems. I think that Wonder Woman did a great job with story, and I like Batman v Superman, as you know, but you got to have really strong scripts here. So anyway, Mark Millar said, "Oh, we're truly in Putin's America," that they wanted to do Superman Red Son. But I think this would be very divisive, because we've even had situations lately here in the United States, for those of you who don't know, where some Trump supporters are like, Russia is our friend. And you're like, what kind of bizarro, speaking of a Superman character, world have we entered? But I just don't, if I were Warner Brothers, I'd be like, do I want to be in the middle of this political discussion? You know what? No. Also, look at what happened with the interview in North Korea, right? And that whole Sony hack. Now, there were rumors that it was actually a disgruntled ex-Sony employee who just made it look like a North Korea hack to kind of like divert attention from themselves. But you know what? Russia has proven to be pretty good digitally. I would not want to poke the bear. I'd just be like, you know what? Let's go tell him. There are a lot of Superman stories you can tell. And they haven't even really done, I think at this point, a basic Superman story with Henry Cavill. So I think, bring in Brainiac. Everybody wants Brainiac. Everybody knows the internet is tough. Nobody's going to be like upset about that. I think Superman Red Son is too much of a lightning rod. But I'd be curious to how you feel about it, both from a political standpoint, and also how do you feel about the idea of using potentially two different actors? And then also Elseworlds. Do you think the mainstream moviegoer can handle Elseworlds at this point? Maybe someday, but I don't think that day is today. All right, so the second story of the day came in late last night. One of you tweeted it to me, and that's that Michelle Rodriguez on social media is like, I'm not coming back for any more Fast and Furious movies if you don't give me more to do, Vin Diesel. And Vin Diesel's like, I can't take it. I'm fighting with everybody. She should be complaining to Dwayne Johnson and be like, Letty's going to run away with you, Hobbs. Give me a bigger role. I think, and so here's the thing. She was like, oh, this doesn't pass the Bechdel test. Jordana Brewster and I have been making these movies for so long together. We've never had like more than a handful of lines to one another. And I'm like, she's not in the movies at all anymore, Michelle. Be careful. And so she's like, I'm just going to leave the franchise. That's going to be my card that I'm going to play. If you don't give me more to do, I'm out of here. And I really liked her in The Fate of the Furious. But at the same time, she's complaining about women's representation in the films, but they just had a female villain, and the film was tremendously successful. So I don't really know if you could, and the series produced Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot, I thought she was very good in the two Fast and Furious movies that she appeared in. I thought her and her relationship with Han was excellent. I miss them both. But anyway, I think that as much as I wouldn't want to see Michelle Rodriguez leave the franchise, I think she needs it more than it needs her. This reminds me of Robin Wright recently saying, I'm going to leave House of Cards if you don't give me more money. And then she said, I got more money, guys. And then a couple of months later, she had to be like, actually, I was misled. I didn't get substantially more money. But, it really is unfortunate and it sucks. And I'm kind of bitter about it. But at least I got to start directing some episodes and, well, I don't want to ruin season 5 for you of House of Cards. It's very good, but it puts Robin Wright in a really great. She has great scenes in this season, but season 6, if it gets greenlit, and I can't imagine it wouldn't, is going to be very big for her. But anyway, so she couldn't leave, and I think that these actresses have to be careful before they threaten to leave, because I'd be like, if I were like Vin Diesel or any of the producers on Fast and Furious, I'd be like, really, Michelle Rodriguez, you're really going to leave? I'd like to see that, because you left before. It didn't turn out so well for you. You got nothing going on right now. Or like that movie she recently made where she was a man turned into a woman, and Sigourney Weaver was in the movie, and you're like, this is a great prime example if you should cast a transgender actor in such a. Like Michelle Rodriguez didn't bring any star power to that movie. No one saw it, and no one really talked about it, and it's just. She needs Fast and Furious. I just don't think she's going to quit. I think Gal Gadot could once her current contract is up for Wonder Woman, she could hold out for more money. I think Scarlett Johansson, to some degree, could get a lot of money for Black Widow, although her other box office numbers are not going to help her in negotiations. For instance, the Bad Moms Christmas trailer just dropped today. I think those actresses probably got a nice raise for a Bad Moms sequel. And so I think you have to know when you can walk away, and I don't think Michelle Rodriguez can walk away. So I think that her threats are empty and hollow. So that also doesn't make women look particularly good. It's like, you don't even know how to negotiate, ladies, and that's embarrassing. All right, so anyway, the third story of the day is a story I am so incredibly excited about, and that's that the George Lucas Museum is a go, because the city of Los Angeles has approved it. So they're going to start construction later this year. It's a $1.5 billion donation from George Lucas. How crazy is it that he's like, he can give away $1.5 billion? But it's just such, I mean, like, wow. Fox is like, who wants merchandise for movies? So hot, fabulous that they're like, let's give him the rights to the merchandise and shut him up. And they're, wow, they sure did. He's like, oh, run away, be very quiet. So he's giving $1.5 billion to build this. He considered both Chicago and San Francisco, but settled ultimately on Los Angeles. And considering it's like basically a pop culture movie museum, I think that makes sense. I'm so excited to go. So it's going to start construction later this year, and it'll take 3 years to build. So mark your calendars. You can go to there, and then you can go to see the Star Wars land. Oh, that's going to open a little bit earlier at Disneyland. It's going to be an amazing trip. To, like, Los Angeles is Lucasville. So anyway, it's going to create a lot of construction jobs, which is why the city of Los Angeles is quite happy, and also 1,000 permanent jobs. And it's going to have a $400 million endowment on top, maybe for acquisitions for exhibits, etc. And it's going to focus on 3 different verticals. And this is great. This is so exciting that this style of art is being celebrated. George Lucas, just when we think we don't like you, you do something just so fabulous and magical. All right, so he's going to focus on the history of narrative art, digital art, and then also the art of cinema. Oh, I'm so excited. Like, for instance, I lost it to my apartment with mold, but I had this wonderful DVD of Rear Window, and it had this great Universal Hitchcock montage at the beginning, and it was to great music. It was so wonderfully edited, and it just made you appreciate the artistry of Hitchcock films. I could just watch it on a loop. I feel bad that I don't have it anymore. And so for a movie, for a museum to celebrate that, I'd be like, where's the gift shop? I'm so excited. Okay. The permanent collections are going to be Star Wars, duh, right? He's going to donate all of his stuff, or at least most of it. A Norman Rockwell exhibit. I love Norman Rockwell. I recently got to visit Walt Disney's original office, thanks to a BTT viewer, Scott DeMonico. Thank you again. And there they had a book of Norman Rockwell's artwork that he had signed for Walt himself. And so I love that. I love a camaraderie among great artists and American, I guess, shapers of Americana. But anyway, also then a children's book illustrations permanent exhibit, which I think is fabulous, because I think that children's books are like a gateway drug to comic books and then to movies and TV and all this stuff. So I think it's just fabulous. And George Lucas said in his statements that he thinks that this is an important art, this kind of art, especially to adolescents. And I just like, George, yeah, put that on the building, man. That's fantastic. And I just think this is also important art to everybody. Filmmaking is art. MoMA currently, the Museum of Modern Art here in New York City, tries to celebrate film, but I don't think they're quite commercial enough. I don't think they go far enough. I think they're trying to still keep their museum cred, and I think their exhibits therefore aren't particularly compelling. But I think this is a very, very big deal, and I think we need it at a time with both studios forgetting the importance of art when it comes to blockbusters, but also I think talent doesn't understand the importance of commercial appeal. And I think with the people that George Lucas is picking, including himself, like Norman Rockwell, this is stuff that's very commercial and mainstream. And I think that sometimes I see talent, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, for instance, going a little bit too niche. And I think you shouldn't underestimate the importance of making something that everybody can enjoy. Look at the success of Marvel on that note. And so I think that is, and I think even Wonder Woman tries to accomplish that, which I think is great. So a museum that underscores that, if I were a studio executive, I'd send all my filmmakers there. I'd be like, you know what, just spend an afternoon at the George Lucas Museum, and let's see what you come back with. And I bet it's going to be great. I'm so excited. All right. So anyway, a viewer question. Yes, we have a viewer question from Alex Martinez. And Alex Martinez says, hey, Grace, or anyone in the comments, really. I have a quick Marvel question. So please feel free to answer Alex's question down below yourself. So Alex says, after Infinity War, what's the next step for the MCU? If characters do die, do new people in the suits start getting their own origin stories again? Do they keep moving on? I think he means like Lady Thor, Ironheart, that situation, the female Iron Woman. Do they keep moving on? Oh, I liked it when Pepper was Iron Woman, but not in the movies. It didn't work so much. But in the comics, I liked it when she was rescued. But anyway, do they keep moving on with the new movies for them? All if nobody dies? All the movies have been gearing up for Civil War and Infinity War, so when the latter comes to an end, I'm really curious as to what's next. That's my big problem with comics today. And someone did answer this in the comment section when Alex first posed it and said, oh, they're just going to pull from the current comics. And I would say that there are really no big epic stories coming from comics anymore. Because as I've said, they've become really promotional materials for the movies. You know, what's the cart and what's the horse? And so I think you'd be hard pressed, particularly with today's crossover events, which are all more about just being a crossover event. And also, I think that Secret Empire, for instance, they're never going to make an evil Captain America story. I just don't see that happening. And also, it's too comic booky with the cosmic cube and altering reality, changing, you know, Steve Rogers' whole past so that he becomes a part of Hydra early days. I just think that that's like just too out there for. I think the comic book movies that do the best are the ones that are pretty grounded in reality. So I just don't see any candidates, recent comic book stories, for adaptation. So I feel bad about that. As for the MCU itself, I feel that perhaps they'll go to smaller stories. You know, they'll dial things back after, you know, a big blowout with Infinity War, almost like it's hitting a reset button, not only for the characters that live, but also they'll have new Avengers coming in. And I think that'll be a big part of where the MCU goes after Infinity War, what this new Avengers lineup is like, how they interact with each other, trying to, you know, step in for the Avengers that were killed. I'm sure at least one will die during Infinity War. And then maybe, I'm sure, trying to bring those characters back. I don't think anybody should remain gone for that long, quite frankly. Maybe a year or two at most. But anyway, I'm curious, what do you think should be next for the MCU? And what do you think of the current state of comics? Do you think the comics are generating stories that are suitable for the movies like Civil War and Infinity War? And to be perfectly honest with you, I think Infinity War is a tough sell too. I think that, you know, Kevin Feige might feel nostalgic about it, but I think I'm sure he had to seriously rewrite it, just like he did Civil War. But, you know, I guess if you're just looking for titles, maybe Secret Empire would work then. I think that movies and comics are going to continue to diverge as movies really become the driving force creatively for these characters. And I have mixed feelings about that. So anyway, that's today's Morning Movie News. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and Alex's viewer question. Anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.